I spent 1 month making a Steam game called Gunfrog, and this month was by far the most profitable and exciting month in my game dev journey so far. The month started with me getting a message from Blackthorn Prod, one of the biggest game development channels on YouTube. It was an invitation to participate in a game dev competition. In this competition, 6 game developers would compete for $5,000 US. The competition would last 3 weeks total, with an elimination round at the end of each week. I was a little hesitant to participate at first because I had a lot on my hands with my main project, Grapples Galore. The main reason I decided to participate is because of my main project though. I've spent around 4 years working on the same game and it's still not done. Because of that, I've been feeling a little burnt out from development lately. This competition was a good opportunity to finally work on something new. On the first day of the competition, they announced the theme we'd need to create a game around, Momentum. With Grapples Galore being a physics-based movement shooter, I was pretty confident I could make something cool with this theme. A couple months ago, I learned a development approach that I knew would help me a lot during this competition. When I was working on a game called Schrodinger with some friends, we incorporated Valve's approach to playtests. They playtest every single day, and always base what they work on off of those playtest results. This approach drastically improved Schrodinger, and would be my biggest asset during this competition. With this approach in mind, I spent the first day making an active ragdoll frog and some bouncy trampolines to gain momentum on. Throughout the week though, because of playtest results, I slowly iterated the concept into something far more interesting. I gave the frog a gun to allow for more gameplay depth. Then I removed the trampolines in favor of bouncy lily pads and built out a little open world. I also added flies so the player has something to do with their gun, and these flies would double as a currency. I was pretty happy with that mechanic because it felt very unique. I also added a bunch of NPCs to interact with, such as this ammo dealer and this wizard. I even managed to add a boss fight at the end of the week. With all of this progress already, I was pretty confident going into the first elimination round. It was still nerve-wracking regardless, but I managed to get through to the second round of development. I was feeling ambitious during the second week, and I knew I wanted to add 2 new boss fights and 2 new corresponding areas. This sort of scope was only possible because of my game's art style. When designing it, I was thinking heavily about a GDC talk I watched about the development of a short hike. In that talk, the developer explains how he created a time-efficient art style. By focusing on interesting shaders and cute simple graphics, he didn't need to spend too much time creating individual assets. I applied this concept to my game's art. There are also a lot of small imperfections in the art style of my game, but I think that gives it a lot of charm. I always appreciate that rough around the edges, handcrafted look in indie games. Here's how the new areas and boss fights ended up looking. I also made some smaller enemies. To tie this new content all together, I needed to rethink the gameplay loop. I needed a reason for all of the boss fights, so I made these shrines that would summon them. The initial way players would activate them was by sacrificing flies, but after playtesting this, I knew I had to change that. I didn't want collecting flies to feel like the sole focus of the game. I kind of just wanted them to feel like a currency. I improved the shrines by adding 3 buttons in each area. When you shoot all of them, a shrine rises out of the ground and a wave of small enemies spawn. After you beat all of the smaller enemies, a boss spawns, and once you defeat a boss, a boat appears that will take you to the next area. These extra steps made the gameplay feel far more diverse. For the sake of better player guidance, I still needed an overarching goal for the game, so I put this portal in the starting area. It only activates once you beat all of the shrines, and behind it is where King Toad will be. When designing bosses for the game, I would Google what animals eat frogs, and one that stuck out to me was other frogs and toads. I thought a giant toad would be a really cool final boss for this reason. I also added this grandma frog to the starting area that tells you a little bit about him, so players immediately have some sort of goal. This week we were also given a surprise theme by another contestant. I was given the theme Ring, which was fortunately not the biggest curveball. I repurposed the wizard and wizard tower I made in the first week and moved them to the third area. Here the wizard sells you a ring that allows you to double jump. With all of this done, I managed to get through to the final week. In this final week, I somehow managed to finish Gunfrog. I added the final boss King Toad and his castle. I also wanted to add one more area before King Toad, so I created this last area and shrine. One of my favorite NPCs is in this area, this half-eaten toad. I also added a final cutscene and even set up a Steam page. Shout out to my friend Hamad for helping with the Steam art. I'm super proud of what I made in such a short period of time. When I joined the final elimination call, I was still super nervous though. The final game I was up against was Randy the Raccoon, a fast-paced, chaotic driving game. However, in the final elimination call, 1 judge voted for Randy the Raccoon and 2 judges voted for Gunfrog. I was so relieved and happy after this call. All of the other games were super cool and this competition was super fun. Randy the Raccoon and Particle Accelerator both have Steam pages, so be sure to check them out. I didn't want to spend too much more time on the game post-competition since I wanted to get back to Grapples Galore, so my plan was to spend one last week finalizing the game and then release it onto Steam. I started by setting the game up for localization and sent some friends Excel sheets so they could help me with translations. Afterwards, I added controller support and some Steam achievements. I also made a few gameplay changes, like giving the player 2 health instead of 1. I made a few other changes too, but I don't want to give away too much. After only 1 month, Gunfrog was ready for a Steam release. But I wanted to set up a business for this game's release. This can take a while, and I've been waiting 2 months for this. This period of waiting has been really exciting too though. Me and the friends I made Schrodinger with went to the Swedish Game Awards and managed to win Best Technology. We also got 2 other nominations, including Student Game of the Year. I've also continued development on Grapples Galore and have some exciting new content in the works. Once the Blackthorn prod video dropped, it was super fun to watch and see what everyone thought of my game. All of the comments were super nice, and a good number of wishlists rolled in too. Fortunately, for everyone who wishlisted the game, today I got the news that my business is set up. This means I can finally release Gunfrog. If you want to play it for yourself, there's a link in the description. Let me know what you think of the game in the comments. I had a really fun time making it,